Hey everybody, I'm Katallina, and today we're here to talk about episode 6 of Failure Frame. There were a bunch of really interesting things that happened in this episode, but I think that primarily the main thing we need to talk about is what covered the bulk of the episode, which was these dragon riders who had shown up with the intent of killing Seras, and the entire situation that ensued, because it was a wild thing on so many different levels. I mean, first up, and just to get it out of the way for anyone who's popping in here and who is new and who might be concerned, yes, there were some situations that were sexually dicey and gross. That is a tendency of show. Fortunately, for the most part, this show doesn't really go into showing anything that would make me uncomfortable. It generally alludes to things that might happen to characters, and then, for the most part, does not let those things happen, and uses it as a catalyst to make us hate the people who open their mouth and behave this way, which, it's kind of like an inverted save the cat, and it does work. It can get a bit repetitive in general, but it doesn't really bother me. I still want to make sure I point it out though, because for some people that might actually be kind of upsetting. That out of the way, I think we got a really interesting situation with the white-haired guy. I think his name was like Civet or something. I might be messing that up. And Touka and Seras, and the altercation that basically came down mainly between this white-haired guy and Touka, but of course Seras having some say in the situation because, I mean, it was about her life or death. And what we really got from this dude was that he basically had what I would lovingly call a Goku complex. He was all ready to let Touka and eventually even Seras go on the condition that they were going to power up and they were going to fight him, which is something I would normally expect, as I just said, from like Goku, which is hilarious. Because, I mean, really, what is some, like, Dragon Ball referencing doing in here? It was really funny and kind of came out of left field. But what was really cool is what was actually done with it in this story, because in that kind of story, generally speaking, Goku ends up being correct, the person ends up being redeemed or at least left in neutrality, and we have them live so that we can fight them another day. Oh no. Touka played this like he was Vegeta, and it was great. Touka was like all dealing with the situation and setting things up and trying to play his cards to keep himself and Seras alive, as though he didn't really have the power to stop this white-haired dude and his henchmen from doing whatever, and as though these negotiations were the only thing that they could use to save themselves. But even though I bought into that initially, this time Touka even managed to fool me. And what ends up happening is that at the precise moment he gets the opportunity, he attacks all of these people with his abilities, and he absolutely rocks their world. And that was wild enough. And the fact that this dude that he was fighting, like inane, actually was like trying to crawl around while under the guise of paralyze and poison, which was damaging him, was insane, to the point where dude actually called in reinforcements. And I'm like, oh crap, what are they gonna do now? Because the issue we had seen up until this point is that Touka needs to be in range to use his ability. Well, apparently that is not as much the case as we might have thought, and we learned that here because Piggy Maru is now essentially like a rope or an arrow, or however you want to think of it. He's basically an extender for Touka's abilities, and he stretched out in a bunch of like long tendrils and was closer to the things that were coming in from the air, and Touka was actually able to amplify his range because of this and bring them all down. Like, Touka wrecked an entire freaking battalion of dragon riders. He absolutely destroyed them. And considering how gross and how scummy these bastards were, of course, it was great. We then also see the reality that Seras is like, you saved my life, thank you so much. I will follow you, I will serve you, I will this, I will that, and Touka is like, do what you will, because, I mean, I don't think Touka deeply cares about that per se. he's far more interested in keeping things balanced between the two. And he's thinking to himself that she's done things for him as well, and that he is no less likely to repay his debts than she is. Like, he's willing to be cunning and crafting and cold and conniving and cruel when he's dealing with people who act in that way. But one of the moral rules of Touka, as far as I can tell from the story so far, is that when Touka senses that somebody is actually a kind and good and honest and decent person, Touka is not the kind of character who is going to screw them around. Touka is not the kind of person who is going to take advantage of someone's kindness. Touka had no qualms taking advantage of this white-haired guy, because this was not a nice guy. This guy was running around with absolutely screwed up scumbags. This guy was running around with people who were like, maybe we should pass her around as if Seras was some kind of mason jar they were gonna drink from or something, for lack of a better analogy. Good lord. So he doesn't get any sympathy from me, and that twist in mood and timing and pace was absolutely fantastic. That was the majority of the episode. The other thing we did get, though, were a couple parts at the ending. One part before the ending credits, where this strange new woman gets introduced to the other students who are training to fight the demons, and she ends up in an altercation with that blonde-haired guy, the kind of dirty blonde guy, who has been a total bully through the entire series and has been really annoying. And she absolutely rocks his world. She screws him up. Somebody please collect the pieces of this man and see whether we can reassemble him, because holy crap, he got owned. And then it was basically any questions, and of course everybody fell in line. But I mean, who is this, what's the deal, etc. I'm pretty sure she said her name, but you know how I am with names, guys. But it was interesting to see that the goddess was not in the picture at the moment. But then, after the credits, we get to see that the goddess is doing something else, and I do not know who this person is that we saw licking the goddess's feet, which, why is it always feet, people? Oh god, yeesh. But anyway, in political, metaphors and stuff in storytelling, any kind of licking or kissing of feet or boots is usually viewed as a sign of fealty. It's not always viewed through a sexual lens. So the idea that we have somebody licking the goddess's feet tells me that there is somebody that she has caused to be inside of some kind of subjugation. And we are seeing the result of that, because this is not something that somebody does towards someone who they view with esteem. This is something that you do to somebody that you want to exploit or subjugate. And it looks like something is going on in that regard. The last thing I want to talk about, just briefly and tack it on because I thought of it after, is we saw the cutscene with the old emperor who has sent these people to kill Seras. And the fact that this creepy old man wants to kill her because he's afraid of the idea of dying and then her being defiled or something, aka, as far as I took away from it, he's mad that he didn't get some. It's oh god, why is it always this crap in this story? I like this story a lot, don't get me wrong, but oh man, this story lays that crap on so thick, which I mean, I can understand to an extent, because it's the kind of thing that's going to make somebody instantly hate these characters. And we keep having different characters come in. We don't really have, outside of the goddess, a consistent set of villains where we're building the hate up over time. We're dealing a lot more outside of the goddess with more of a monster of the week or problem of the week kind of situation. So every time we turn around and they're dealing with new characters, we need a compelling reason for Touka to be able to be Touka and to do his Touka thing. And I would assume, from a writing standpoint, one of the easiest ways to do that is with the kind of motivations and scrupulous morals that we see these people having. Because even though Touka is a character who uses dark principles when he fights, we still end up liking him because the people he is fighting are shown very quickly and very effectively to be absolutely disgusting. Anyway, this was another great episode. I actually thought this one was really fun. And as I said, it absolutely took me by surprise how it shifted in the middle. That was brilliant. But I'd love to know your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let me know. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. See you later. Bye!